Russ, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have you here because you represent a different side of the business than the people we've been talking to so far. Okay. So that's a really, this is going to be really interesting for students and everyone alike, I think, to get the flip side of what they've heard so far. So my first question is, what really sparked your interest in getting into the field of marketing, communications, advertising? Was there something that inspired you or something that you studied that really got you interested?
My mother owned a bookstore when I was a kid, and I went to her one day and I said, "Hey, I'd like a new bike." And she said, "Okay, let me introduce you to penny profit." And so I'm a fairly young kid. So how it boiled down was that I started to sell these romance novels and everything else in the store. But in particular, she said, "Hey, you see these romance novels, these Harlequin books?" She's like, and I said, "Yeah." She said, we make about 50 cents on the dollar." And I said, "Okay." You see, and I said, she said, "You see these Penguin romance novels?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "They don't sell very well, but I make 75 cents on the dollar."
Oh, wow.
She says, "You want a new bike? Go sell Penguin books." And so that to me was an exercise in not only was it the economics of how the business worked, but also what I understood pretty quickly was the power of that Harlequin brand name. Even though I tried to push these other brands, people would come in and they would specifically recommend or insist rather that I sell them, show them, etc. these particular Harlequin brand books, and it was an uphill battle. So I was battling a brand.
Now, do you think that that course load, the things that you learned in grad school and in undergrad, once you decided this was the way to go, do you find that those come in handy now? Do you refer back to them, or have they been beneficial to you?
I don't think that just because you studied one particular thing means that's what you are. That's what has defined you. When I first started my work life and my career, people were, there were any kind of majors, art history majors, and they were running, multiple brands. And so it didn't seem to have affected them in their career, so I don't think it's necessary. It's a great place to start,
right? But
you don't have to have a marketing undergrad or grad degree to be a marketeer.
Is there one thing, or are there a couple things that you didn't see coming, that you say, wow, that one took me by surprise?
Bot fraud, advertising fraud. Figured it was going to come because I'd seen fraud in the industry and other areas, coupon fraud and this and that. So I figured it would somehow permeate its way into the digital space, but I didn't realize how pervasive and how big a business and how organized it has gotten, and how nobody really wants accountability to go tackle it. And so there's the size of it and the scope of it and the pervasiveness of it, but then there's also the fact that really nobody wants to tackle. It's like a big thorny subject that people are kind of putting their head in the sand around. So I think there's something that the industry needs to tackle in a pretty material way. And so for kids coming in, to the industry, there is these things that they may seem small, they seem innocuous, but they're going to be bigger before than you think before you know it. I think the fact that some of the big agencies haven't morphed as fast as I thought they would have. That model is challenged in a pretty big way. So if you're a young person coming into the business, and the industry is very, very healthy, it's just going through a lot of change. And I think that's it's very, very exciting. So I like the fact that there is constant change, constant tools changing and morphing and so forth. I think that's part of the exciting part of the industry. So if you're a person that likes things that are new and fresh, then come to advertising and marketing, because it's always new and fresh.
You've been at a bunch of different companies, big ones like Pepsi, and now you're working at a company that has global offices, right? I guess I'm trying to get you to talk a little bit about what it's like to be on the client side of this, so the owner of the brand.
Yeah. So I've always been on the client side. I've never worked at an agency. So if you're a quality marketeer, then you can market pretty much anything, whether it's a physical good, or whether it's an intangible, like insurance is a concept, it's a promise. The product may change, but your understanding and the basics of building a brand and understanding consumers and what makes them tick and need states and so forth, and then the process of getting good messaging, it's very similar across industries.
How can someone present themselves to you so that you say, that's the one I want?
Yep. So I look for things like, so recency and relevancy are important to me at a more senior level. So how recently has this person done things that are very relevant to this particular role? Almost like a 2x2 matrix, how recent and how relevant, And if they've got those skills, then that's probably somebody I want to talk to. Right. But if you're starting out of college, you don't have that necessarily, right? So what can you do to appear that you are a qualified candidate? So one of the things I really like is scrappiness and grit. Did they put themselves through college? Did they work a couple of jobs? Did they creatively do something? Did they start their own small business on campus? Did they lead and change things versus plug into the existing set of assets? That's sort of like the easy way.
Right.
I'm going to go be president of this club and get involved in that. Those are all fine. But how do they reinvent or make something different? That's being innovative and scrappy and gritty and so forth.
One of the things that I've read about your company is that a differentiator for you is that you look at risk differently, that you're risk takers.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
And so talk to me a little bit about how you feel about risk and what you think the role of risk is in this whole profession.
From a marketing perspective, you may not have all the answers, but you have ideas. And even though the ideas may not be fully formed, it doesn't mean you can't air them. Share good ideas that may be one step too aggressive and too whatever you define as being too far, and then dial it back. But if you never get up to that line, you'll never know. I would say the industry's long-term viability is built on people who have that level of desire to push the envelope. It doesn't have to be a spark of pure genius creativity, lightning in a bottle, but it can be things that are known, but maybe not to that industry, or just brought to life in a new and different way that advances the messaging and breaks through, because ultimately that's what you want.
How do you adopt to new working environments?
One is I do a lot of listening. And so I observe. Before I come into a company and make any kind of changes, I really do spend a fair amount of time just listening, talking, pain points, et cetera. As I've gotten more senior in roles, I talk to the people in finance a lot to understand how does a business make money? How does it run? Right? You can see the operations, but how do they make money, and what's important? What do they measure? Right? What's the scorecard? So just because you are about to graduate or just have graduated with your first college degree, it doesn't mean the learning is over. Read the history of the company. You will add gravitas to yourself by being able to understand the journey of the company, and you will look wise beyond your years of service, your tenure in the company, if you know some of the backstories. Seek out people that may have spent their entire career there, but maybe they're not running the place. Maybe they've been, very adeptly running a portion of the company, and go talk to them.